Sebring, I mean, he was hairstylist to the stars. He was so well known for his haircutting style and his innovation and the way that he cut men's hair, because most men had their hair cut with clippers, and Jay introduced the scissor technique to cutting men's hair back in the day and cut all the famous celebrities' hair. And I actually went to dinner with Lainey Kazan, who is an actress I worked with before, who actually went on a date with Jay Sebring 2 days before he died. And so she told me what he was like and kind of gave me an insight to the way he, you know, his personality and his little idiosyncrasies, which was really helpful in creating this character. To, you know someone that knew him is, it's a little creepy, but it helped a lot. Trying to figure out where these characters came from and figure out what was going through their heads while the Manson family was in the house and murdering them is a really dark place to go to, and it was a struggle to try to figure out what would Jay be thinking as, you know, he was watching Tex go after Sharon. Like, what would he be thinking? And it really went to a dark spot. This was one of the biggest acting challenges I've ever had in my whole career.
I play Abigail Folger in the film, and I was drawn to her because she's a little bit of a mystery. If you do any Googling and sort of background research, it's actually quite difficult to find out all that much information about her. I know that she was from the East Coast, and she was heir to Folger's Coffee, and you know, she had a bright future ahead of her. She was an activist, she was very political, and you know, she actually had lectured at the junior high that my mother had gone to a few years before her murder. And my mom said that she really was such a remarkable and powerful and influential woman that it was an honor to have the opportunity to actually breathe life into this role and portray her.
My character, Wojciech Frykowski, was one of Roman Polanski's childhood friends, and I fit into the story as at first a house sitter and then a house guest who was supposed to be taking care of Sharon Tate when she's 8 months pregnant, and unfortunately was here when this whole thing went down. Wrong place, wrong time for all of them. The fact that the character is Polish and that my family's from Poland and I grew up speaking Polish and know a lot about the culture and country and customs, I think that helps a lot to be able to play the character authentically. So when I see things like that where I can bring in my background, bring in some knowledge to the character, I think it always helps to bring a level of authenticity.
Stephen Parent is the name, and he was the very first person to die in the Charles Manson murders. There's not a ton of information on him, it's kind of hidden, but what I did find was he worked 2 jobs. He was saving to go to college, and that he was on the grounds that night, and he was just leaving the property, and he ran smack into him. And if he had left a couple minutes before, he'd still be alive today, which is really kind of hurts.
I play Susan Atkins, Sexy Sadie, and she was a runaway. She ran away from home at a very young age. She didn't have a really good family life. She was stripping. That was her job.
She would sleep with the grocery store attendants and managers to get
for food.
Yeah.
So she didn't really have a family life or any structure. So when she met Charles Manson, he showed her love, like the kind of love that she didn't have at home, and that was the only person that showed her love. Yeah. So it was easy for her to buy his lies and be manipulated by him.
I think that's how all of our characters started out. We were all looking for love, and then he showed us what he thought love was, and so we just believed him. As crazy as it was.
And we didn't know any other form of love.
I played Tex Watson, and for me the interesting thing about playing Tex is the account from the rest of the family that was in residence that evening was that they had never seen Tex in that state of mind, and when he pronounced that he was the devil, not only did his victims believe him, but so did his cohorts. And it was described as being a sort of demonic possession in his eyes. And so for me, to try and dial into that place is quite the challenge as an actor, but also quite the opportunity.
And I play Kathleen Kierwiegel, and I think the highlight of this character is that she loves killing. Everything to her is fun and a joke, and when she's stabbing them, she looks at it as beautiful.
We dropped LSD like 300 times, I think it
Yeah,
was at least, and it was other things among that, speed,
Yeah.
coke, like a combination of things that made us pretty much lose our minds. Charles Manson actually, he was taking a lot less. He was pretending to take the LSD,
Yeah.
but really he wasn't
Yeah.
taking it, and he was manipulating all of it.
When I first read the script, I absolutely loved it. It's so well written, and I love that it's from the perspective of Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring before the murders happened, because so much of the coverage of this event is done from, you know, the Charles Manson side. You don't see many different documentaries or many films where you actually watch Sharon and Jay the days leading up to the killing, which is what attracted me to the script in the first place. Like, you see what their daily life was before the killing. Most films or documentaries just cover the murders themselves. So you get to see an insight into these people's lives, knowing as an audience member that they're gonna die in 2 days, one day. They're gonna die today, you know? And I think that's a really interesting way to approach a film.
I think reading the script, what really drew me in was the different angle that it takes, the kind of redemption that it gives her and her friends, where the outcome, unfortunately, in reality is not different, but you know, she has a chance to fight back and change things, and it was just interesting to me. I think this is such a great time for women to come in and kick ass. I really loved the angle of them getting to change their fate, and obviously, sadly, at the very end, you realize the reality, which is what the true story is. But through her dream sequences and through her intuitions, you know, she trusts herself and believes herself. For a split second, things were different.
The script, I think, was super thought out, and I always loved scripts where I learn things about it, and it challenges me to go back into a real historical event and start learning information and just engulfing information, really. For me, Steven is sort of, he's not in the main group, and he's sort of outside in a way, and there's this, you know, comedic and lightheartedness to him, but also just such a purity. And I think the purity with the juxtaposition of the darkness that actually happens is such a sort of a beautiful story to tell and to show, and I think doing that justice was very important to me and was sort of the allure to me to do it.
This tape, it contains subliminal messages. It's a technique called backmasking. Here, listen again. I love you, pretty good. But when I play it in reverse, that's clever.
When I finished reading it, I was surprised that I felt it was hopeful. I know that sounds bizarre, but because we're telling the story through different dream sequences and alternate idealistic realities, I found hope in it. I found hope in maybe each of us deciding that maybe we can live our lives differently and things could change differently. That the question of fate versus free will, I think people have been struggling with forever.
I think reading the script and just, you know, thinking about my career and the types of projects that I've worked on and chosen have been very different from this. This is very dramatic. This is very scary. So it's always nice to challenge yourself as an actor and do something that's a little uncomfortable for you to, you know, kind of push you into an unknown territory and really fight for it. You know, actors, we thrive on that kind of thing. So this script has definitely presented its challenges and made me go to very uncomfortable places. And also, I feel like I relate to her. I feel like she was a a girl from Texas, which I am. I feel like she had very traditional morals, which I do. I think she loved to have fun. I think she cared about the people that she cared about fiercely. I think she was over the moon excited to become a mother, so she had very maternal instincts. I really wanted to be a part of, and I really just hope that I can do her justice. I can tell her story and portray her not accurately. Obviously, I have to bring myself to the table, and this is a different version than the real one. But I think she was an amazing person, and just I want to do right by her.
So basically, it's about Sharon Tate coming home from vacation, and it's based off of the actual murders that happened to Sharon Tate and the horrific way that they passed away and everything. And this story is looking at sort of an alternate reality and sort of them fighting against this thing and sort of in a beautiful way sort of forging a new reality for themselves and looking to have a happier ending, and I think just fighting against evil and darkness and different things.
I got this satisfaction from reading that they actually kill us instead. And I know that a lot of people that have followed the story will also receive that same satisfaction of thinking about what it would be like if the tables were turned. And I thought that was a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I love how he changed the perspective of it. If this had happened, this would be the outcome.
It had an Inglourious Bastard sort of angle to it, this revisionist history that's very satisfying. Now, I won't admit that it's satisfying right now because we are still shooting.
I have always been really interested in the Manson murders, and obviously very intrigued by Sharon Tate. She was obviously so young and so talented and so beautiful, and just seemed to have everything going for her, and her whole life right in front of her. And obviously for that time it is devastating, but I think it was super devastating for that time period.
So I knew about the Manson murders and I was familiar with them, but I didn't know that much. So I watched pretty much every documentary there was until I felt like I had a good grasp on what happened. And the more I watched them, the more I realized how insanely horrible and vicious these murders were.
I've known about it for a really long time and done a lot of research, and it was crazy when I heard about this role because I've always been kind of fascinated by the story.
It's crazy, the fact that this happened seems like it's out of a movie, but it's real life. So to be making a movie about something that seems like it can only come from a movie is a really interesting kind of world to be living in.
I think it's impossible to be familiar with Charles Manson and not know Sharon Tate, especially with her incredible romance with Roman Polanski and their child that they've been expecting. It's one of those things that you can't know the family and not know Sharon Tate.
I see this as a story of someone who we are portraying Sharon Tate as being tortured and having these, not physically, but before all this went down, taking the idea, the premise of the interview that she gave where she thought that she had a premonition that she'd have a horrible death, and using that as a jumping off point.
Some people might not have even been familiar with who all was in the house, and I love that this central focus was on those friendships, on that bond, and sort of Manson and the family were secondary, almost ghost-like figures. And I also loved that this centered around the spirituality of Sharon, because she was a very spiritual person and she was very deep.
I wasn't actually familiar with Sharon Tate and the Manson murders at first. I did a lot of research into that period, and it's very interesting to me because I'm from a later generation, but looking back for the director specifically and knowing, you know, how much did that affect him as a kid. And when you're a kid and these big events happen, it's very important. I remember like when 9/11 happened to me, it was so like a very big thing, and it hits my memory strongly.
I feel like I've been hearing about it so much lately with him dying in jail and everything, and just I knew that they were lost souls,
But not like this. This is crazy. Like, they're freaky and wild and like off the roof. I never thought that people could be like this ever.
I didn't know how graphic the murders were, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I knew there were murders, but like actually portraying the killing, it was a lot more twisted than what I thought it was.
When I was a senior in high school, I read the prosecuting attorney's account. He wrote a novel, which I will not plug, but he wrote a novel, or he wrote a nonfiction account of it. And when I first moved to Los Angeles, on a rather macabre history tour that I took myself on, I visited both the family cave, Spawn Ranch, and the former Tate residence, which they have attempted to try and change the address, but if you do enough digging, you can locate it. So for me, I was acutely aware of this story and probably, I'm not going to say too well versed in the backstory, but very eager to play this character.
God, 15 years ago on Cheaper by the Dozen 2. And he was a lot of fun then, and he's a lot of fun now.
My good friend Hilary Duff and I, hi Hill, we worked back in the day on Cheaper by the Dozen 2, which is a very similar movie to this. Cheaper by the Dozen 2, big comedy, very similar to The Haunting of Sharon Tate. Not in the least. It's completely opposite. So being together on this set, it was good because we already had a relationship established before we came to set. So Hillary and I were able to tap into that and, you know, feel like we've known each other for years because we have.
I have not worked with any of them before. I am familiar with all of them, and I mean, everyone was so incredible on this project. Everyone was so nice, so friendly, so professional. It was really, really an incredible experience, and it's amazing to be able to say that at the end of the day we could laugh and have fun together, especially in those dark moments when we really are being broken down and crying and having those moments on set that it all became so real. It was nice to be able to get lifted up at the end and know that you're with your friends.
It's a really positive group of people. It's always nice when you're dealing with such a heavy subject matter, with a lot of gore, with a lot of night shoots. So it's been a great experience.
I had not worked with any of them before. Jonathan, I had known a little bit of his work, and of course Hilary Duff growing up. I had 3 older sisters growing up with me.
In this film, I'm terrorizing Hillary, and not but 6 months ago, I was terrorizing her older sister Haley. It seems like I have a unique job to terrorize the Duff family.
The other day we were shooting a scene where there was lots of fake blood involved, and we had nooses around our neck, and there's like knives to our throats, and sometimes it just gets really real. And obviously it's very helpful during shooting the scene, but there have been moments where I have to just walk outside and take a moment to gather my thoughts and pull myself out of the reality that happened to these people.